because there's a lot of investment right now in individuals. But what I feel really passionate right now and what Adapta offers is to take your team, Pedro, however small or big, and really take it on a high performing. It's the same as sports, because if every individual is extraordinary and yet they can't play together in the team, they don't row in the same direction, you're not going to have the same outcome. So it's about that sort of performance. With women that we do a lot of leadership programs, it's also about how do they show up as powerful leaders. And there are different dynamics. In terms of, for women, it's a lot about power, visibility. How do they show up, especially in those boxes, but industry, which are still very male dominated, So, yeah, and we do it unconventionally. I mean, that's one thing. The non-conforming part of my Audacity is we take people, for example, on retreats or team offsites.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the podcast where we interview business owners on how they built their businesses and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is David Wynn, and I'm a business coach and the founder of Purple Circle, where we help business owners achieve their first 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure year, all without sacrificing their quality of life. Before becoming a business coach and before founding Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7- and 8-figure coaching businesses, and have been a consultant at several businesses doing over $100 million each, including some that are publicly listed and doing over $1 billion each. In every episode of the podcast, you're going to learn lessons that took our guests years to learn, and you'll be able to learn that in minutes. No matter if you're a new business owner or an established business owner, every episode is going to give you the clues in order to elevate your business.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Alina Addison, who spent over 25 years at the heart of global financial markets, including serving as a managing director and head of trading at Rothschild, where high-pressure decisions and razor-thin margins forever were simply part of the job. That lived experience in one of the world's most demanding environments now shapes everything she brings to her work as an executive coach, speaker, and trusted advisor to leaders in global financial institutions. Alina's leadership philosophy centers on audacious leadership, grounded in courage, care, and nonconformity. And her book, The Audacity Spectrum, published by Profile Books, captures the framework she's built over decades of real-world leadership. As founder of Adapta, she runs signature programs including Women in Power and Audacious Leaders, and hosts retreats at her boutique hotel in Transylvania each spring, where impossible dreams take shape. Welcome to the show, Alina. Did you like that?
Yes, I think that's fine. Audacity is probably, you could have stopped even earlier, but it's nice not to miss out the hotel.
All right, let's get started then. Editor, start recording here. Welcome to Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Alina Addison, who spent over 25 years at the heart of global financial markets, including serving as managing director and head of trading at Rothschild, where high-pressure decisions and razor-thin margins forever were simply part of the job. That lived experience in one of the world's most demanding environments now shapes everything she brings to her work as an executive coach, speaker, and trusted advisor to leaders in global financial institutions. Alina's leadership philosophy centers on audacious leadership, grounded in courage, care, and nonconformity. And her book, The Audacity Spectrum, published by Profile Books, captures the framework she's built over decades of real-world leadership. As founder of Adapta, she runs signature programs including Women in Power and Audacious Leaders, and hosts retreats at her boutique hotel in Transylvania each spring, where impossible dreams take shape. Welcome to the show, Alina.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Well, Alina, you're the one to blame it. I'll put it simple like that, right? You built that yourself. Now, Alina, I'd love to go back to the origin story, So let's rewind a bit, because every coach has that moment when they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you?
A long time ago. And I think for me, I'm celebrating 10 years of my business Adapta. So that's my 10-year anniversary. And it was probably 5 years prior to that. So about 15 years ago, my real inspiration for me being a coach today was my own coach, John, who I really I was inspired and I admired for many years. And the catalyst for change for me was my own son, Dan. So, those two humans have really shaped who I am today and inspired me to become the coach that I have been for the last 10 years.
Okay. Now, congratulations on the 10-year anniversary. That's first. Second, now walk me through the name, Adapta. What's up with that, Alina?
Yeah, Adapta. So for me, it's quite a few things in there, but you will see that Adapta has got 7 letters, which serendipitously, it's my lucky number, I would say. However, I wanted a very short name for my business, and I wanted it to start with an A. Well, actually, ADA. So there is a story behind the story. When I was a managing director at Rothschild, I was known by the initials. That's a sign of status within the Rothschild is once you become a managing director, you are known by your initials. And my initials were ADA. So and this is an unwritten rule that, as I said, as you become the managing director, people will have to talk to you or about you as an initial. So they won't say, in an email, I spoke to Alina, I spoke to ADA or Ada. And there was this little book of initials. So you actually had to go and find, because it was a cardinal sin not to address someone by their initials once they were managing director. So I had this vision that I wanted to use the ADA somewhere in my business name. I used to be on the plane many times between Edinburgh and London because I've got sort of family there. And for that 1.5 hours, I always used to do words puzzles. And I thought I hit the jackpot. I thought, adapt. I mean, how simple. And then, I was just about got excited to go, and there's sort of 2 things when you set up any business. So one, it's in the UK at least. One is you have to register the company with the company's registrar, and 2 is you have to have a web domain. And one of the advices that I had very early on as a new entrepreneur, the new kid on the block, was, Alina, when you register the company, make sure you have the web, because it can become expensive if you haven't done it immediately. So I went, and Adapt was gone. I was so happy. I came back from that, but the plane gone. There was taken by the company's house, as we call it in the UK. And I was so disappointed. And I just thought, okay, I'll just add an A. And again, it's like, I hit the jackpot. Adapta with just 1 A. And I thought, how creative am I? And then I got to do the web, was taken. And I remember being at the dinner table, and my daughter at the time was tiny. And I thought, oh my God, 6 months of playing and I can't do it because it's not available. And then she very simply said, Mum, why don't you just add another A? Just like that, like any creative, for them, there is nothing impossible. And I thought, why not? So I added another A. And so that's how Adapta with 2 A's became. And everybody thinks today that it was deliberate, because my initials are AA, of course. And it wasn't deliberate, but there is no coincidence, as I always say, serendipity. It was meant to be the way it was through a pure coincidence.
Okay, super cool. Okay. Now, curious about another thing. We're getting 10 years in the game, right? In the coaching space. And there's always a shift, right? In the beginning, you're giving advice. Sometimes you're helping people and all that. And it gets to a point that you're like, oh, wait a minute. I'm actually building a business around this, right? Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's different. But in your own experience, what clicked for you that you're going through a business that was going to be built around a coaching practice? And when did you realize that happened? Was it the first paying client? Was it the first invoice? How did that look like for you when you started and where you're at right now today?
Oh, I already had that vision as I started. So I gave myself 2 years, because that's the most difficult part of any entrepreneurship, whether it's a coaching business or any other type business, a tech business. Really, the first 2 years of building is when you build a foundation underneath the ground and you can't see it. And it's the most difficult part. And even my own coach said, Alina, if you can make the first 2 years, then it will become a lot easier. Most people fail in the first 2 years. But I had the vision of having a business which was bigger than myself. That's why I wanted a name. I mean, going back to Adapta, my business was not going to be called Alina Addison, which probably 95% of the coaching businesses are called. The coach's name. It's just easy. And it's the identity that's linked to the actual coach or the head coach. So I always had the vision of my business was going to be bigger than me. My business was going to serve corporations and do more than one type of coaching. So we do not just one-to-one coaching, we do team coaching, we do group coaching, we do retreats. So there's a breadth and width of service.
But why coaching? I mean, you could be doing a lot of things. Like I said, I come from a financial background. I am a coach. It's not, I would say like that's not a natural transition to like financial to coaching. So why did you choose this lane?
Good question. And for me, as I said, it was really having had an incredible role model in my coach, John, at the time. So when I was the head of trading and execution at Rothschild, we used to joke on the desk actually that I was going to leave. I was there for 15 years. It was a long time. You know, I had longevity in the business. That when I was going to leave, I was going to do something completely audacious, you know, crazy, they would say at the time. And the joke on the desk was a hedge fund for women, or a women hedge fund. That's what we were playing with. And I always used to say, well, whenever I'm going, and that was sort of the last 3 years, it is going to be something so different. I didn't know what that was, but I really meant it. I knew there was going to be something different. Having watched John also came from the financial services industry, and he had a fairly similar story to mine, as he was also really inspired by his own son. So there was something that I saw, and I got inspired by the possibility. I didn't know much about, you know, except having experienced coaching on myself and having known how transformational that be on the human that I was and where it took me. I was also very realistic in as much as I gave myself 3 years. If it wasn't going to work, I was going to go back into the finance world. So it was a calculated risk. I love risk. I love experimentation. I was the head of trading. So it's an unregulated market. I mean, it's so crowded, even at the time I remember. And I got really inspired probably many more years before I got inspired by John is when before I became a managing director, I went on one of these 1 week residential, and it was an intimate group of husband and wife and another coach. I had no idea what coaching was. I actually did not even know that, as in the context of corporate coaching rather than sport coaching. But again, that week was so transformational. I remember sitting in that classroom, and it was a very small group, thinking, wow, that's just such an amazing job to teach people, train people, transform people. And talk about the origin story, Pedro. I mean, if you go back all the way to my origins. I was born in Romania during the communist era, and I qualified as a teacher at the very green, fresh age of 18. Never professed, but I learned psychology very young, and so I literally almost went back circle many, many moons later.
Okay, interesting. Well, now I have another question for you, because it sounds like right off the bat at the start, you kind of have a lot of intention of doing what you're doing right now, very focused, right? And in the early days for coaching, sometimes coaches are trying to help everyone, right? They're just trying to land the client and all that. So it doesn't seem like it was your own situation. So what I'm asking you is, who do you serve, eventually and right now, and if that evolved from the start, if in the early days, was it the same people you're serving right now?
It's probably the same psychographic, as I call it. So I always had the intention to go back into the financial services industry because I understood that world. And, you go to the coaching faculty, if you like, academies, and they say you actually don't need to understand the industry, which is true. And it helps. It helps with the credibility. It helps. I understand. They don't have to explain to me. I can relate immediately to the pressure. I can relate immediately to, the high standards and the pace of that environment. So I went back just literally straight after the school of coaching into the financial services industry. And I have been there for the last 10 years. It hasn't changed much. So for me, maybe in terms of who I serve today, they are the leaders, the people at the top, the heads of the departments and in these big global financial corporations. And I teach them, today I teach them Audacity, interestingly. But what I found very early in my career, it was the emotional intelligence. There was one tool that I really connected with, I really resonated with. So I use that a lot I still do, but maybe a lot more in the early part of my career. I mean, I told you about my son has been the inspiration, or the catalyst, rather. He is on the autistic spectrum, hence my book is called The Audacity Spectrum. So, he's been my biggest teacher and my biggest student, probably many of the tools that I use today. Because if you can negotiate with someone on the spectrum, you can negotiate with, almost anyone. And I always say part of my story is as the head of training and execution, I could negotiate with almost anybody. The one person I couldn't negotiate with was my own son. So that training ground has been extraordinary, in terms of the experience that's given me. And the whole emotional intelligence became very close to my heart, because if you understand the spectrum, in theory, is a very extreme case of low emotional intelligence. So then I learned that it's a learned behavior and it can be learned. So my belief system was, if I can teach my own son to increase his emotional intelligence, I can do it with anybody else. And that's my biggest testimony.
Wow. Okay. Very impactful. Appreciate you sharing that. Okay. Now, I want to do kind of an exercise,
Mm-hmm.
Let's pretend I'm your ideal client profile. I'm one of those leaders at the top of the financial corporations in the world. Let's put it like that. So first of all, marketing wise, how would
Mm-hmm.
I be able to find you?
The most likelihood is that someone will have told you about me. So, that's what I've learned sort of early on. It's called the advocacy market. Is actually when you serve someone very powerfully, the likelihood of them going and telling their boss, the person who reports to them, their peer, their friend, it's very high. That, majority of my business has been through that sort of word of mouth, referrals, recommendations. And, as I've grown the business, I'm also working with the team and the team of collaborators, not just about me and Alina being, working with someone and then being referred to someone else. We've also used the social media. So LinkedIn is my platform of choice, and I have a marketing manager. So you will see content being put for the last quite a few years now. And certainly since my book came out 2 years ago, that's also been one of the reasons why we've been a bit more present.
Okay. I'm still that same person. Okay.
Mhm.
And let's say I was referred to you, or I looked at your content on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
or eventually I read your book. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's say that happened and that resonated with me. I'm like, Alina, or better than Alina, Adapta seems like a
Mhm.
cool place to, take a look at what's going on there. Maybe they can help me. So let's speed up the sales process a bit. Let's just say there is alignment. Okay.
Mhm.
You guys
Mhm.
see that you can help me. I can see that you guys can help me. Now, I understand you may have different offers, but if you
Mhm.
wanted, you can give me a quick rundown about them, or just pick the main one, whatever feels helpful. So walk me through, how does it look like to work with Adapta? Okay.
Mhm.
And potential outcomes I can expect out of it.
Yeah, so in terms of, Adapta, it's very much sort of the emotional intelligence piece. Most of the coaches that work within Adapta will have that one, but we have many other sort of tools. So it will very much depend on the client. So you and I, if you were my ideal client, we'll have a conversation. We'll find out, Pedro, what's next for you. What do you need to achieve? It's very much in that family of achievement. I personally would take you on what I call an audacious journey. So we will set a very exciting destination for you, and that could be the next step in the career, or something else that you want to. It's a passion project. There's something that's been really sitting with you, that you wanted to do it for a while. So that will be the North Star. For me, is courage. I always say, I used to say I give people courage. It's incorrect, as in it's not accurate, because I'm not going to hand you the courage. I will help you to find the courage within. And it's that, to care about your mission. The caring bit is, care so much about the mission that you want to accomplish, that you then don't care about what other people think. And finally is, how can we do it in a creative, non-conforming way? Because yes, it's great. Let's find what the rules of the games are, and can we find ways to get there faster, or to get there in a more intentional, creative way. So just to give you examples, will be, someone who will want to set up a new business, or someone who have already become, in these places that I am, there will be a managing director or partner. So you work with someone on a one-to-one basis, but really the biggest transformation is when you then work with the team. Because there's a lot of investment right now in individuals. But what I feel really passionate right now, and what Adapta offers, is to take your team, Pedro, however small or big, and really take it on a high performing. It's the same as sports. Because if every individual is extraordinary, and yet they can't play together in the team, they don't row in the same direction, you're not going to have the same outcome. So it's about that sort of performance. With women that we do a lot of leadership programs, it's also about how do they show up as powerful leaders. And there are different dynamics. In terms of, for women, it's a lot about power, visibility. How do they show up, especially in those boxes, but industry, which are still very male dominated, you know? So, yeah, and we do it unconventionally. I mean, that's one thing, the non-conforming part of my Audacity is we take people, for example, on retreats or team offsites or into the Transylvanian, in Transylvania, overseeing Dracula Castle. So you take them in a place which is really so unusual that they have no choice but to really start thinking creatively. You create that sacred, different space, and you could actually achieve a lot of transformation in 4 days. And then you come back and integrate that over 12 months.
So it sounds like, if I got that right, we have a B2C kind of offer and a B2B. You also have teams and all that. You receive them on those retreats. I got that right? Something like that?
That's right. That's right. So it's for us, it's really, it's mainly B2B, if I were to be, in terms of the business. The B2C, the retreats, yes, because a lot of people do self-fund and win that. And what we used to do less so, but we also we still do, but not as much as I had in the first part of my 10 years, if you like, is what we call the open programs. So we will have people from different organizations, from private equity 1, private equity 2, 3, 4, and we'll put them into intimate groups of 8 and we'll work with them over 9 months, which is a lot of the connection peer group, at this particular level. And it used to be, let's say, directors in this, what do they need? How do they need to be? Is all about the being in their roles to be an exceptional leader. And it's a lot of the learning is from us as coaches. We normally do it in pairs. So I will do it with my business partner, Tatiana. So we will be paired to show actually and role model the partnership. And then we will have the cohort. Then they will learn from us, but mainly from each other.
Okay, interesting. I'm curious about one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the B2B side, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about someone who makes a decision at a upper level and say, hey, I need help to facilitate this team with X, Y, and Z, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So my curiosity tends to be in the buy-in from them, the team. So let's say there's friction, a little bit of friction, because they're being told to be there, right? I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just curious about how to navigate the buy-in from the team where they didn't make the decision to be there in the first place.
Well, that's my job. It's interesting you say that. Absolutely, but it truly is. So you need to have the buy-in of the leader. If you don't have the buy-in, I mean, there is no assignment. You're
Right.
not going anywhere. It's the same. I mean, think about a football team or a basketball team. Once you get them gelled around what's the common purpose, what's the common ground, it's extremely exciting for the team, because especially in those environments where they are rewarded in terms of its financial reward. So it's all about how much money do they make? And if you sell the dream that if they all row in the same direction, actually 1 + 1 = 11 as a team, really the absolute competitive advantage is in the team. Because they say, the advantage of a team is the individual, and the advantage of an individual is the team if they're part of the team. So once they understand, of course, it's not a little friction, by the way, or tension. It's a lot.
Right?
It's a lot, because that's what teams are. They're very complex. And you put 2 people together in a partnership, I mean, that's complex. You put 10, and it becomes exponentially more complex. And so you get to, and once they understand they're different, and you leverage the difference. I mean, that's a key part of the team coaching. Actually, how do you leverage differences? You don't want people to be all conforming, because then, you just get group bias, actually. You want people to feel safe and brave and, to take risks. And I'm not saying it's easy, because if it were easy, everybody would do it, as my dad would say. It's not.
Okay, I have another one for you. I'm just thinking out loud. Like I used to put myself in the ICP shoes, and I'm put myself in your shoes. I'm trying to understand the dynamics. So let's play it like this. You mentioned Tatiana is your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hired you guys, Adapta, and I'm like, hey, I need help with my team. They need to get to what A to B, and this happened. and they're not really, they're slacking. They're not really good at what they're doing. Okay, let's put it like that. I framed it as it is, and then they go to the retreat or the cohort or the group setting, whatever that looks like. You're 2 days in. Okay, you start talking to people on the first day. You're just adapting, and right. And second day in, you're in a Tatiana looking at each other, and you're like, I think the problem is the leader. I don't think the problem is this team, because they seem like nice folk. They're into it. They're trying their best. I mean, how do you navigate that conversation, Alina, with the paying client that is coming from a biased point of view of saying my team is to blame when actually he is the problem?
Well, I get paid to tell people the truth, and I take a lot of pride.
Love
So
it.
if you were to work with me as a leader, there's no gloves. Number one, I wouldn't take you on if I don't believe that you're committed. And most of the time, and I'm going to say something incredibly provocative here, but most of the time, yes, it will be the leader, because that the saying that the fish always smells from the head. And it's not true all the time. But if you don't have leadership at the top, you could have the best team in the world, as you said. That's why nobody won the Olympics without a coach, whether you are an individual tennis player or whether you are a basketball team. So that's rule number one with anyone who wants to get engaged with a coach. So you have to have the buy-in from the leader. I have no problem to say to the leader, the tension is here. The reality of it is most of the time when we work with the team, we would have already worked with the leader. They would have already been primed. Now, if it's a team, not a group, if it's a team, so you talk about Tatiana and I, we have an incredible tool, Meta Team. So this is one of the, in terms of the range of tools that we use. But for the team, we have many. Most people who are team coaches will tell you they use the Lencioni's model, which is great. There are many. We used something else which is called the TPA, the Team Performance Accelerator. So, but the one which we found incredibly powerful, it's a diagnostic called Meta Team. So I'm gonna promote them right now. But what the team will do, they will do a diagnostic. So they will do a questionnaire. So you'll have the leader, you'll have, let's say in company, yours, as you said, you'll have the CEO, you'll also have the chairman. So those two will have to do it. The team will do it. Let's say it's a team of 10. And then they will also nominate stakeholders. So then you have the whole system. And it's very, very visual. You see it in a wonderful map with colors. Where are the pressure points? And this particular model works in 8 team behaviors. So you have, for example, trust will be one, adaptability will be another one, agility will be another one. So you can then measure, and under each of these 8 behaviors, you have 4 subcomponents. So there are actually 32. So imagine, and the way we use that sort of language is you get 32 potential workouts, because there are 32 different muscles. Use the sports metaphor. Every team will have pressure points, and that will tell you, black and white or color, which are the pressure points for your team. So then, and the leader may think, well, actually, this team is not agile enough. Yet the data comes back and says there's a lot of agility in this team. They're very innovative, they're very creative. The real problem is the trust, but not trust, because actually they're very, very trusting in each other. There is the component of the trust, which is they're not enough difficult conversation. They're not allowed. So you start flexing where you see the reds. And the idea is to turn those reds, because you'll see it in the map, into yellows and then blues. And then you redo this in 12 months' time or 18 months' time. And the transformation is, I promise you, incredible. And they cannot argue with the data because it's them. It's confidential. Right. Nobody knows who said what, but but what you do see, you will, for example, I'll give you one example, is the leader thinks that the team is not agile, everybody else. So you start seeing where you need to have the conversation. Or the chairman thinks everybody's very clear on the stakeholder demands, everybody else is not. So it's like, so you start seeing the mirror in terms of the different perceptions.
Drama. I love it. Sometimes it feels like you hit first of all, I hit a nerve, it sounds like. And you kind of, I agree with you, kind of nailed it. It's about the leadership at the end of the day, most of the time. Also, you mentioned a curious an interesting part, which is that the team is not agile, and there may be someone may raise their hands and say, hey, I'm not agile because you need to approve everything and look at everything I do, and that stops me from being more productive. And then you have to have that type of conversation, because it's like, trying to control because it's coming from a place of fear. It just peeling off the onion, right, to get into the bottom of the truth. Now, shifting gears for a second, okay, I'm curious about where you're taking all this. 10-year anniversary for your Adapta. So looking ahead a bit, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling even more, hiring more people, or is there a next step you're excited about?
Yes, yes to all of that, actually, Pedro. Interestingly, I don't want to I don't want to scale too much because then you lose the intimacy. This is where our real competitive advantage is in the intimate containers that we create. When we do the retreats or the teams in Transylvania, the hotel, it's a boutique hotel and it's got 20 rooms. So we, at the moment, unless we so the teams that we take on are within that size. My sort of desires are mapping the next 10 years are for sure to become, the experts. So people know in audacious leadership, as I call it, or, emotional and human intelligence. My partner, Tatiana, is an expert in intensity. So intense environment, but also intense human beings. And so I want to develop and expand the team of experts that we have that will be known for best in class. So if you want, the best in class in strategy, you come to Adapta. If you want the best in, so that's my desire. The hotel, it's my dad's legacy because we built it from a ground zero, or he did. And his dream was to have a center of excellence, on top of the mountains overseeing Dracula Castle. That's what I want to develop in the next 10 years. So you can come from Brazil into Transylvania with your team. We may expand from 20 rooms to 30 rooms, but no more, to have some real transformations over 4 days or a week or a year, in terms of, because a lot of this stuff can be done in London and in Brazil and in Transylvania and virtually. There are many ways of cutting the cake. But yes, I think it's transforming, leaders on a one-to-one basis, because that's always going to be the bread and butter. As you said, you get the leader to lead properly and audaciously. Everything else will follow. Then you work with the team and get them into high gear, high performance, where they all row in the same direction. And that's about it. That's how I want to scale.
I love the legacy when you start to talk about your dad. Really like that. It hits home hard. We also just had our retreat. I remember we talked about that when we first met, right? And we just came back from Tulum, Mexico. We spent a week there for a community. So yeah, I'm excited. I would love to take a look at that castle. I'll put it simple like that. Okay. I like the intimacy of it too. It's like it's a container. You're not in a big place and eventually avoiding people. You're like just there and making it work.
It's a family.
Yep.
You have
like
no
it.
choice. No choice whatsoever. That's a beauty. So actually, one of the things, I'm part, I can't remember what I mentioned to you when I saw you, but I'm part of a community of coaches, which is called 4PC, led by Rich Litvin. So the 4% coaches in the world. So they came, we do 2 intensive a year, and they came in at the hotel in Transylvania in September 25. Now it's 30 of them, and everybody wants their own rooms. But what I did do, so that was also, in a sort of groundbreaking for me, is finding a few sister little cottages around where we can accommodate everybody close enough. But we stayed at the hotel, which has got a wonderful, wonderful conference room and the restaurant and the tower. And I always say it's a family feeling. We all eat together. The chef will do it specially just for us. It's exclusive into one place, and it makes it so much more intimate and so much more powerful.
Okay. What's the name of the hotel?
It's called the Transylvanian, or not the, it's called Transylvanian Inn.
Transylvania
Inn.
Okay.
Transylvanian Inn, INN, because it's an inn. It's
Yes.
And .ro, RO, because it's Romania. I can send you the link.
No, it's all good. I can add into the description and later on the episodes. All good. Appreciate the insight. Now, whenever we were aiming towards the next chapter, an exciting next chapter, as it sounds like, there's always something we're refining in the present, right? So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
What am I currently trying to improve in the business right now? Well, my biggest challenge, Pedro, is to say no. I've been working on this for 10 years because I love the experimentation and the risk. So I say yes to everything because I get excited. So what I'm working right now, and I have been working for, if you ask my own coach, probably for 8 years, I am getting there, is to, what do I say no to in order to keep my energy for the big yeses? So it's more that, and really selecting the lanes and being very clear as to who we serve and the industry. Because I did a bit more than just financial services, and, it might go back, but, healthcare, is I'm coming back to the center again. It's probably the biggest challenge. I'm sure you have heard that from many people, maybe all. It's how do you stay ahead of what's happening in the air world and we use it in our favor and stay still human? That's the biggest challenge right now. How do you navigate? It moves so fast. How do we navigate that? So that's top of my mind.
Okay. And if you had the opportunity to come back 10 years, okay, in time and give one piece of business advice towards the coaching Adapta business to past Alina, what would that be?
Actually, it is. I mean, for me, it's be part of an incredible coaching community, which I have, but maybe be braver, do that earlier on. So, maybe then just one, I can think of a few things. One is ask for advice and ask for help. Just don't hesitate, because there's so many people out there who want to sort of help you for sure. And because I'm such an experimentation, I've experimented with so many things, so I've learned so many things, but maybe for the wiser self to my younger self, I'll say sleep on some of these things, because I'm almost the extreme, you see. Sleep and see how it feels rather than jump so fast into so many different things.
Great reminder. Okay. Now, if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Alina, and we're going to have all the links in the description. Okay. But what's the best way for people to find you and connect with you?
Well, I have one of the things I didn't mention at all, Pedro, is on the back of my book, The Audacity Spectrum, I also do keynote speeches on Audacity. So I have a website which is called alinaaddison.com. And that's just me as a speaker. I obviously have the website, which is Adapta, which is us as a business, but that's in progress of we're revamping it for the next 10 years, but that's adapta.co.uk. And then the other thing that I have, and, I haven't sort of leveraged, is I have my own audacious conversations live on LinkedIn. So they're LinkedIn Live. It's not a podcast. It's a LinkedIn Live. And they all get uploaded on YouTube. And my YouTube channel, if you want to call it that way, is Audacious Alina.
Okay. Alina, there were a few moments from the conversation that I feel the need to highlight. Okay. First one, let's go back to the origin story. Your inspiration for coaching, very unique from the conversations I've had here in this podcast. You were inspired by a mentor, which is John, right? So interesting to look at someone you admire doing something. You're like, you know what? I'd love to do something like that. So that's interesting. Great reminder, by the way. And also by being a risk taker your entire life. So it sounds like that's aligned with taking that leap of faith and running your own business, Adapta. Okay. Another thing I feel the need to highlight is also the book, right? The Audacity Spectrum. And then you told me the story about your own son. And then you're telling me if I can navigate that negotiation, I can navigate almost everything. And that always brings me back to perspective. I think that's the word, right? It's like I had people doing we do kind of a vibe check for those that are listening and not aware of it. We do kind of a vibe check before the podcast, which is a vibe check to see if they're cool. Well, Alina's cool. She's here. And I had people in Israel while they were being bombarded. He was like in a safe house holding his cell phone like this, looking up. And I had people taking calls at 5 a.m., 5:30 in the other side of the world. So that really put things in perspective to me as someone that, like, people are so committed sometimes. And sometimes we take like C and Bs as something that is regular, but there are A players out there. Okay. So having that mentality, the perspective and the lens you added to your book with the experience of your son. So such an important reminder. Okay. And last but not least, I would say the North Star you mentioned, which is courage. It's funny, right? Because marketing wise, positioning wise, we usually in coaching, at least I don't do it. We don't sell courage, but at the end of the day, there's a quote, which is sell them what they want and give them what they need. And eventually we get to that point. But from a point of view of a positioning piece, it's hard to sell someone courage, confidence, because they're like, what does that even mean? They don't even know me, And sometimes they don't even know they need that. They're on the tactic level. They're on the surface level trying to understand their own hurdles, right? So, Alina, this is just my long-winded way of saying that I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. Okay, it was great having you on.
Thank you, Pedro, and absolutely, I shall be looking forward to having you visiting the Dracula Castle at some point. And I'll visit Brazil during the Gramado and see the snow, which is really unusual. I didn't think that would be possible.
Okay.
That's it for this episode. This episode, as well as this podcast, was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help business owners elevate their business to 6, 7, and 8-figure years, all without burning out. If you're looking to grow your business, as well as get the time freedom that you are looking for, visit us at joinpurplecircle.com and see what we can do to help you and your business.